So yes, it is basically confirmed that Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to be at WrestleMania. But if you actually take the graphic that WWE showed us at the end of this week's episode of Raw, it's not going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it's going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's right, it has a question mark after it. Now, the whole point is that we're meant to go, oh my gosh, is the rattlesnake going to be at the shows? But I am a simple man, and if you write Stone Cold Steve Austin question mark, I go, oh my gosh, Kevin Owens versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. I screwed that one up. It didn't even sound like a question. However, you take my point, and now we shall take the finger of power, which is the finger attached to my hand, and we will give the good bits an up and the bad bits a down for the latest episode of Montag Night Raw. Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins are out to start Raw this week, and let's face it, you can't get better than that. They promised to win the tag team titles in around about 32 seconds and that they would use that to go on to WrestleMania, and of course reminded us that they absolutely hate Texas. And when Kevin Owens was talking, he said the word undeniable. Now look, I know absolutely nothing. I am a goober, but we keep saying this word that just happens to be in sync with Cody Rhodes. And I don't know about you, but Damian Priest seems to have stopped using the Reckoning as his finishing move. Do with that information what you will. Alpha Academy soon interrupted, and I know some of you are going to be going, they can't be interrupting because they were coming out for a match, but it's my counter, and I say pull it down. That is 52 for WWE and 77 overall, and man, WWE loves branding stuff, because now when Chad Gable and Owens come to the ring, their entrance music starts with the whole shushing. And they've got t-shirts that say shush, and the commentators were going shush. I just sat there laughing. I was like, man, you can't say anything in this company without it just being thrown to the moon. Of course, they disagreed with everything that Owens and Rollins said because they're going to retain their tag team titles. And then we went to the back, and there was Randy Orton, and there was Riddle, and they were just super jacked and amped for this match because they also promised that they were going to win the championships, so somebody here was definitely lying. We then had this triple threat tag team match for the belts though, and man, I'm just going to sum it up by saying, what an awesome weekend and Monday we have had in the world of professional wrestling. Seth was diving all over the place to begin with. This inspired Kevin because he started grabbing fools and hurling them around, but he's not as big as Otis, and that man just flattened Riddle. I mean, it was like a truck running over a sandwich. When Orton got tagged in, the place went nuts, so let's not pretend this hasn't worked. And he even hit an RKO onto Seth Rollins in around about the first 5 minutes. But Kevin Owens then broke it up, and I was like, man, I'm having a good time. A bunch of bodies were then being hurled into Alan the announce table, and I tell you, I didn't actually know who was going to win here. I could make a case for every single team, so then when we went into the near falls, I was biting on everyone. So it was basically lunchtime in my house, even though it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we did this Tower of Doom spot before Chad Gable was all like, right, it is my time to shine, and he just started German suplexing everybody. And for the love of everything WWE, please do not forget about Mr. Chad. He's too good. This got cut off too when Gable went for a moonsault and Randy Orton turned it into the RKO, so you, me, and everybody else was going, oh, I can't believe it. And following this, Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins started doing the buckle bombs, they started doing the stunners, they started doing the curb stomps, and it actually looked like they were going to win. And then WWE did their favorite finish ever. Because as soon as Chad Gable was down, Riddle out of nowhere flew in, he dispatched the Rollins, and he stole the pin, taking the most of the triple threat rules. And that's right, it means RK Bro are your new tag team champions. And it's just a round of applause all round. So this was excellent stuff, and Owens and Rollins looked devastated because now how are they going to get to WrestleMania? And in a very strange twist in my own life, I woke up and I checked the internet after I'd watched Raw, and the WWE on Fox account told me to give this a golden up. Well, they didn't tell me, but it's basically what I took from it. So before anybody goes crazy, I'd already made my notes before I had noticed this, but seriously, it's not just gonna get an up, it's gonna get a golden up for 2 reasons. 1, it was just really, really good, but 2, I'm just buzzing. I have loved everything that's happened in the last few days of wrestling, and I wanna throw love out there, so I'm taking my love darts and I'm chucking them around. Really shouldn't have said that. Love dart sounds terrible. We also had a quick chat with our new champions afterwards, and Randy Orton called Riddle his friend. I was getting all emotional again, and when one of these dudes turns on the other, well, hopefully it reminds WWE that if you just take your time, you will end with wonderfulness. We then went from this, which basically took up the first hour of Raw, to all the 24/7 madness, which is why sometimes I do think to myself that Raw may be my favorite wrestling show, because you just don't know what they're gonna do. So we did see Dana Brooke and Reggie, and Dana was like, oh, Reg, give me a kiss, because for no reason, she has just decided she wants to be more than friends, when we also went to Tamina versus Tazawa, and Tazawa just went, hey, Tamina, there's nobody meaner. I want to give you a good luck kiss. So Tamina just stormed over to him, grabbed him, and went, and it was the most aggressive kiss you've ever seen in your life. So this is not normal behavior by either parties. And then, of course, Dana Brooke went to the ring, Tamina Nobody Meaner went to the ring, and Dana Brooke retained her 24/7 title with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up. I mean, we probably could have done something new. Even though she did lose, Tazawa still wanted to tell her that she was the love of his life or something, and Tamina kind of blew a kiss to him, and I have absolutely no idea what this was. As ever, it's like somebody got a spade and just smacked me right in the head and then said, oh, would you like to watch television? And I sit there the whole time going, is this happening or have I just hurt my brain? However, is this kind of nonsense I asked for last week? Like, it is objectively bad, but for some reason I get a great kick out of it. And it's getting it up. I was a little bit worried about Byron Saxton though. He is way too into the fact that Reggie and Dana Brooke are dating. Like, seriously, Brian, you need to turn it down just a little bit. It's getting creepy. Seth Rollins was then despondent backstage because he's not a tag team champion. He's probably thinking, wait a minute, I'm one of the best people in this company. Why don't I have a WrestleMania match when it was time for Miz TV? Of course it was time for Miz TV. If Miz TV doesn't happen on Raw, we'll die. As he and Logan Paul are from Cleveland though, and Raw was in Cleveland, Miz and Logan Paul just got on the microphone. I was like, oh man, Cleveland. Cleveland's so great. I love being in Cleveland. And you know who else is from Cleveland? Jerry Lawler. So why don't you come out here, Jerry? And he did. And then he was all like, oh, Cleveland, man, I love Cleveland. And this was weirder than the 24/7 stuff. Thankfully, we didn't do this with everyone because eventually it would have been like, oh, here's Sandra. She works in the local library. And then Sandra would have been like, oh man, Cleveland, I love the books in Cleveland. And then eventually Lawler went, oh, maybe one day WrestleMania can be here. And the Miz went, nah, that's a crap idea. And he left. Logan Paul was also a bit surprised. So I got really worried because I'm like, man, don't try and turn Logan Paul at WrestleMania. Nobody will buy it. And it really does feel like, of course, we're doing these guys versus the Mysterios, but WWE has no idea how to fill the time in between. I mean, Rey and Dominic were barely mentioned here. It really did feel like it was just stuck there because Raw is 3 hours down. Tommaso Ciampa and Bron Baker were then being interviewed backstage because Bron was going to be on Raw. And if you are a fan of NXT 2.0, start doing this with your hand because Vince McMahon has now seen Bron Baker up close. And I don't think he's gonna go back. You can also tell that he's had a chat with Vince because he was just smiling the whole time like, man, I'm a babyface and I'm so happy to be here. And we had a quick interview with the Street Profits and they said, we've been winning a lot of matches recently. Maybe we should have a tag team title match at WrestleMania. And they probably will. And then, shock horror, Bron Breakker and Ciampa did indeed beat the Dirty Dogs. It was fine. Oh. Turns out this was going to be a tag team heavy episode of Raw 2, and man, was it obvious that Bron Breakker was our guy, because he was just running around and smashing fools. But here's the thing, that should be the point of NXT. You should build a guy up, you should move him to the main roster, and you should continue to build him and not take his foundations and burn him to the ground. He got the win as well after he did that awesome finish. It was like a military press into a slam. I mean, it just looked so good. And he pinned Dolph Ziggler. And of course, we're going to get this triple threat match later on NXT. And actually, that should be pretty damn good. It was then time to rip my heart out again, like Kano from Mortal Kombat. I mean, oh boy. Before we did have an interview with Omos, who promised he was going to get to WrestleMania, when we also found out that he was going to have a match with Apollo Crews. Now, on the one hand, this was great because I was worried that Apollo was dead and we hasn't seen him for so long. But on the other, well, you just knew what was going to happen. I mean, it couldn't have gone more than 2 minutes, even though Crews did get a few shots in there. Eventually, he got tree slammed 1, 2, 3. I mean, he honestly couldn't have been portrayed as a bigger joke. What you really want to know, though, is that throughout this match and afterwards, Commander General Aziz and Omos were staring at each other, and I actually think this may be the WrestleMania match. However, the big question I want answered to is every time Aziz is at ringside and he's watching the action, he stands like a WWE superstar watching a television backstage. Like, if the ring is here, he doesn't watch like this. He turns his side to it. And I'm like, Aziz, what the flub are you doing? All of this is really hard to talk about though, because it ties into everything I've said over the last few weeks. This is exactly what you should be doing with Omos, turn him into an absolute beast. But why can't we give something to Apollo Crews? I mean, he really does deserve more. However, I do have to stand my ground, otherwise I'll just be rolling around on the floor. So I am gonna give it an up. I just appreciate the fact that WWE has found someone they do want to do something with, so they are doing something with that guy. Angry Edge was out next, and man, that guy really knows what he's doing. We did get the most over-the-top video before this. It was basically like Edge has become Thanos, and when he did make his entrance, while you did get You Think You Know Me, blah, 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 it then stopped, a spotlight shone on the man as this weird blue light kind of overcame him. Oh, it looked quite good. He eventually got in the ring and grabbed a microphone and he told AJ Styles, I know you're injured and I know you're watching at home, and just in case your kids were up, maybe you want to put him to bed. And I was like, man, Edge, he's such a bad guy. He's doing backseat parenting. I'm not really sure why Edge asked for this though, because he didn't really say anything that would have upset a small AJ Styles. Because he was all like, man, AJ, I did this because I want the best AJ, and now I feel like I'm in control. I am this industry, wrestling. Oh, by the way, I'm a heel. So somewhat ironically, I suppose you could say this was more style over substance, but did it work? You absolute bet your ass. I listened to every single word he said. At the end of it, I got all like the heebie-jeebies just because it was presented so well. I also know they're going to have a fantastic match at WrestleMania, and look, it's always fun to do something with a new character. I trust Edge implicitly, so I'm giving it up. Back to Kevin Owens after this, who said that he has come up with a plan about how to get to WrestleMania, and he will tell us later on Raw, when we cut to Corey Graves, and he went, oh yeah, all this stuff that happened between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns at the Madison Square Garden house show is now the most watched video on WWE's Instagram page. And I looked at my TV and I went, okay. I have no idea what we're doing with Rhea Ripley either. Well, no, that's not true, I do. We have randomly put her with Liv Morgan and now they're going to be in the tag team title match at WrestleMania, but it's Rhea flipping Ripley. Can we not come up with a single program for her? Her new friend is Liv Morgan though, for reasons, and because they did beat Selena Vega and Carmella here, we are now gonna do this big shamoo at the show of shows. I mean, look, it's fine and it's inoffensive, but where the hell is the story? To be fair, we did have a small bit of narrative between Zelina and Carmella, because halfway through, Carmella just left the ring and she started chatting to Corey Graves. And if you've watched their YouTube show, I know how the conversation went. It was essentially, hey man, do you want to bang? She basically completely missed everything that was going on in the ring though, so Zelina Vega got hit with the Riptide. 1, 2, 3, that was that. I mean, look, it flew by. It was only a few minutes. It does feel like we could be putting a bit more effort in, but I'm giving it up. We then got to confirm that Vader is going into the Hall of Fame this year, and that's long overdue, and we caught up with everything between Vince McMahon, Austin Theory, and Pat McAfee, and then very handedly, here came Austin Theory for a match. He was facing Finn Balor, the brand new United States champion, and it ended in disqualification. But here's the thing, WWE has been very reserved with their DQs recently, and surprise, surprise, when you do that, and you use it to enhance an angle, it works. But it was Damian Priest who decided to wait in the back for 8 minutes before going, nah man, I think I should attack Finn Balor. He came out, he gave him the razor's edge. He looked over him like, man, I'm really angry at you. When Austin Theory crept in, gave Finn Balor the ATL, and took a selfie. So I have no idea why Austin was involved in this, but who cares? And at least we have established that Damian is an asshole now, and he'll take on Finn Balor at WrestleMania. All of this was very quick, although the match was quite good before it did get stopped. I'm gonna give it an up. Bianca Belair was then asked the question, are you going to use your hair at WrestleMania? And I was like, that's it. We picked. It is the greatest question that has ever been asked in the history of this stupid profession. Belair said she'll only use it if she has to use it, so I was just laughing away, probably because I'm envious about her. I have zero hair to speak about when it was time for our main event segment, and it here came Kevin Owens. It was what we've all been waiting for though, because after reminding us that he does hate Texas and telling us that JBL's an idiot and Booker T's an idiot and Shawn Michaels is an idiot, he wants to take on one person when we do get to the Showcase of the Immortals, or at least he wants to invite him onto the KO show on that evening. None other than Stone Cold Steve Austin. Owens just ran him down completely too, and I guess at the moment we can do a match if Austin wants to, or we can just do the segment. We've already talked about it. But the absolute funniest bit is that WWE made the ridiculous decision to play Austin's music here when that graphic did go up on the screen. And if you listened in the background, you could hear the live audience going nuts, because of course they were going nuts. They thought Stone Cold Steve Austin was here. Seriously, WWE, that was not a nice troll. I just think this is super cool though, especially for Kevin Owens. Imagine you were a wrestler growing up admiring the Rattlesnake, and now you get to have a WrestleMania moment with him. Made me feel all warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. Austin at WrestleMania in any guise will be absolutely brilliant. I am giving it up. Of course, we do need to find out whether we're getting Stone Cold Steve Austin or Stone Cold Steve Austin, but we will find out in a few weeks. And once again, Raw has some momentum now, although we are giving it a final down, because was there a "There is coming to Raw" video? No, there's not. The whole thing is flubbing ridiculous, so yeah, give it a down, but overall, give it an up. Now, please do leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about Stone Cold Steve Austin and WWE Raw. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Make sure you head over to WhatCulture.com, and we will let you know what's going down with this and all wrestling news. Watch the video, because, you know, why the hell not? And also, we are on social media. Give us a follow, because when those numbers go up, so does our self-worth. My name is Simon for WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me as always. Thankfully, I'm now going to rest while watching wrestling, because it has been a wild few days, but my word, it's been good, and I will see you soon.